so, and you should be escorted out. But a man like Rufus, almost certainly perhaps wearing, you know, a tuxedo or a cape.
Come on, guys, let's just calm down for a minute. It's the economics of service, isn't it? You know, if you're buying the shoes in London, you're paying £600 and you're paying to basically be flattered, fawned upon and fluffed by a shoe salesman who's going to love you and cater to every whim. If you're getting them for less than half price, you're going to see Surly Joe, who's going to
lob you a pair of brogues across the room.
Exactly, yeah. That's how it works.
You catch them, you throw back £600 cash, and off you go.
I thought I can't leave any of these shops completely empty-handed, so I went to my favourite one, and I said, well, how much are the tins of shoe polish? £5. I thought, oh, forget it, I'm not even going to I'm not spending £5 on a tin of shoe polish. That's it. I'm leaving this 4-hour trek across Northampton with not even a button in my pocket. Nothing. I was furious. So, there we go.
Think on the bright side, you can buy like 10 pairs of regular shoes for the amount you were going to spend on one pair.
Yeah, I know.
I'd have thought as well in credit crisis Britain, they'd be desperate.
I know, you would have thought so, wouldn't you? Anyway.
Till you know what would cheer you up, Ruth?
What's that,
A
Steve?
musical choice.
Oh, God, it would. This is a Pigeonhole track that I got a few months ago. The song is about 6 months old. It came out in October last year. It's Nitin Sawhney singing with Paul McCartney, and a little bit of research on the internet tells me that says one of the people Sawhney approached as a potential collaborator on his new album was Paul McCartney. The song might be about Heather Mills, it might be about Linda McCartney, who knows, but it says, Sawhney says, every day I kept reading about Paul McCartney and the paparazzi, so I thought, why don't I just phone him up and say, do you want to write about how you feel about what's going on? And he said, yeah, that'd be wicked. So he came over and just hung out at the house. Sawhney laughs, as if unable to believe his luck. I love stories about just ringing Paul McCartney up. I love the idea that people just go, what? I'll just give him a call. Hello, Paul McCartney. Oh, hi, it's Nitin Sawhney. Are you cheesed off about the press right now? You bet I am. Want to come over to my house and write about it? Okay. So this is the result.
That sounded like Ringo doing an impression of Paul.
Yeah.
I wonder if Nitin's perhaps foolish there. He's wearing his dark glasses inside, and Ringo's coming masquerading as Paul, desperate as he is to get back on record.
Yeah. Or maybe Ringo was at Paul's house, and he might have said, oh, hi, is that Paul? Yeah, it's Paul here. Do you want to go over to my house and write some songs about the paparazzi? Yeah, I'm coming over.
And they perhaps Nitin's not had the shame. He's not had the honesty to come out and say it was actually Ringo.
Yeah.
Oh, and his lovely wife, Barbara. Was it Barbara?
Barbara
Back.
Yeah.
Oh, she was a good-looking lady, wasn't
really
she? It's why you love me.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the result of that wicked collaboration. It's the lovely My Soul.
Rufus's musical choice on this week's show.
My Soul by Nitin Sawhney with Paul McCartney.
Yeah, of course, the thing is, Steve, that Sawhney's got quite a close bunch of collaborators. So interesting that McCartney's managed to break into that. It's very difficult to get into the Nitin circle. Round of applause.
Round of applause for that joke. If that was broadcast in the morning, Fico on Heart
Fico
FM
would have done that.
Heart FM, that would guarantee him entry in the Guardian's list of top broadcasters. But no. Once again, that's the kind of quality you are giving every week to this programme.
Absolutely, it should be my face in that programme.
Absolutely, once again we have been overlooked. Ruth, I know you are a massive fan of the little-known US folk singer Kath Bloom.
I hate Kath Bloom.
You
can't stand her.
You don't like bloomers? You don't like bloomers? I'm surprised. Well, she, of course, put out a lot of stuff in the late 70s, early 80s, and then sort of retreated from music to raise her kids. Anyway, there is a new album being put out by an Australian record label called Loving Takes This Course, which is a tribute to the songs of Kath Bloom, right, which features some of her originals and also some cover versions from various people, including Devendra Banhart, and also Bill Callahan from Smog, who I know you are a massive fan of. Anyway, Callahan has done a track called The Breeze / My Baby Cries, a sort of medley tunes, and it's quite beautiful, it's wonderful, it's quite laid back, and I think it suits a lazy Sunday afternoon. I'm going to press the button now. That's the reason we're not in that magazine. From a new album called Loving Takes This Course, a tribute to the songs of Kath Bloom, that is Bill Callahan from Smog doing a medley called The Breeze, My Baby Cries. So earlier on we asked for anyone to get in touch who felt they were worthy of an interview on the show, and Joe from Brighton has got in touch. Joe, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Hello Joe, lovely to talk to you. Now, in a nutshell, why do you feel you're worthy of an interview?
Well, I was doing my gardening when I heard you say it, and I thought, well, I took a circus to Iraq, that's a bit different.
You took a circus to Iraq?
Yeah.
Okay, now tell us about your gardening. What are you doing at the moment? You're...
planting some carrots.
Planting some carrots?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you use sort of manure or...?
Yeah, horse poo.
You use horse poo. All right. Well, thanks for getting in touch, Joe. That's lovely.
Yeah,
Sorry, you mentioned something about taking a circus to Iraq. So how does one go about taking a circus to Iraq?
Well, I've been a couple of times before, doing various things, and I was at a festival in the summer, and I saw someone with one of those great big bubble blowers, and I thought, I'll take one of those back to Iraq with me.
One of those big bubble blowers?
You know, the ones that make the giant bubbles?
Yeah, sure, that's the obvious thing. If you see one of those, I always think I should take that to a war-torn Middle Eastern country. And so you, when we should just sort of put some dates on this.
Yeah.
When were you in Iraq?
The circus ran from January to March 2004, about 3 months.
Right.
I've been there from November setting everything up. I originally wasn't going to be in the circus, I was just going to set it up and arrange everything, because I didn't have any particular circus skills. So still taught me to walk on them in our apartment, and I thought, well, I'll run away with the circus.
Of course, that makes perfect sense. Now Saddam was still in power.
No, it was, the invasion was March 2003.
Right, okay, so it was fairly uncomfortable over there. A lot of people are saying perhaps, certainly they're in need of entertainment,
Yeah.
but is it perhaps wise for someone to take a circus to Iraq? Did it not concern you at any point that perhaps it was a touch dangerous?
It wasn't so much the danger. Well, I guess it was. Yeah, I was definitely nervous about it.
But you had your big bubble hoop thing, so I mean, you knew you were safe.
I put out an email saying, if there's any clowns and performers out there, come with me to Iraq. We'll do a circus. You won't get paid. It'll be really dangerous. And bizarrely, 5 other people decided to join up.
That's extraordinary. Where did you send that email? Just sort of general madhouses?
Yeah, someone set up a website for me, and then it was just kind of getting forwarded around.
Yeah.
By performers to one another. And this one guy, Pete, had been he'd done a circus in Kosovo, and I think he'd done some work in India and some work in Ireland with people of different backgrounds, and so he decided to come. And then there was this one guy that had been part of the Human Shields in Iraq, and he was a performer in France. A woman called Amber from Philadelphia that did circus stuff with kids, from a rough part of Philadelphia. And they just, crazy enough to join up.
And so I'm presuming it was just human performers. You didn't have giraffes and elephants and things as well?
No, we couldn't get them through customs.
And so when you are planning to go to Iraq in that situation, is it difficult to get sort of flights and permission?
Well, at that time anyway, you could fly to Jordan and then go in by road, or you could fly to Turkey and go by road, but we all went in via Jordan, and you just go in kind of a public bus, or else you sort of hire a...
So you didn't have a sort of brightly... You didn't have a brightly coloured car where the doors kept falling off? And...
doors did keep falling off, but that was just all the cars in Iraq.
And so, as you sort of entered Iraq, you must have been a bit sort of nervous, surely. I mean, it was a very dangerous... I mean, it remains a dangerous place, but then it must have been even more so.
It was dangerous, and it was nerve-wracking. But the thing that really made me have doubts was when I got back there, and it was November 2007, and I hadn't kind of... Because when I was there before the war, things were very sort of physically safe.
Yeah.
And although people were hungry because of the economic sanctions and stuff, things were kind of... everybody had some food, and suddenly when I got back there were people living in squatter camps. They didn't have housing. They had, they were starving. I went with a Lebanese friend who'd been employed by an aid agency to go and find out what the kids wanted in this particular squatter camp. And they were living on sort of it was an abandoned farm basically. It had no amenities or anything. And so he was asking the kids what they wanted and what they needed.
And they said juggling?
They said blankets.
Right.
And I started to think, what on earth am I doing taking a circus? They need blankets, they need food.
Yeah.
But people there started saying to me, no, they need to feel like children again.
Of course.
And so, I kept on with it, and we did it, and it was just the most amazing experience. People were so up for it, the kids and the grown-ups. And I remember people saying to us after a show, we haven't seen the children laugh like that from their bellies since before the war. So it was really welcome.
And so you travelled around the country. Did you ever encounter any trouble?
kind of, yeah. I mean, when we were in Baghdad, you would hear bombs going off
Yeah.
most days, and it was weird actually because people would laugh at you if you turned around when you heard gunfire. They'd be like, "Oh, were you scared? You foreigners?" Scared of the gunfire.
Oh.
And then we went up to Kurdistan, and we heard gunfire, and we got so used to ignoring it, and then we suddenly realised everybody else was looking round because it was so much more peaceful up there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a weird kind of psychology, really.
And so, I mean, because I just cannot imagine what it's like over there, or what it was like over there. I mean, where were you staying? Where you living? Was there accommodation? Was there hotels?
Yeah,
I mean,
there were hotels. We rented an apartment because it was cheaper, and there were 4 of us at a time living in one apartment. And yeah, the worst thing actually was Sam snoring.
sure.
You know, louder than the bombs actually.
Wow. And it never sort of, you never were worried that perhaps, you know, because you often see those films of people who've been kidnapped and sort of, you know, various terrorist groups as kind of
Really
broadcasting on the web.
By the time that we left,
I suppose a clown kneeling down, being threatened, I don't know what kind of message that's sending.
the first phrase we learnt in Arabic was "Don't shoot the clowns." But
Sure.
someone asked me to repeat it because my pronunciation's terrible. But yeah, no, we were really there before all the kidnapping kicked off. It just the incident, the mercenaries in Fallujah being killed happened just before the rest of the clowns left, and that was really when it all really kicked off. I mean,
Yeah.
not that it was tame and calm before that, but that was when the kidnapping started. Was after that, so. Yeah, you worried about it and you took precautions. Like we had a sign up on the wall saying things like always tell someone where you're going,
Yeah.
walk the opposite direction from the car direction so that people couldn't just pull over and kidnap you so easily.
Yeah.
It sounds bonkers now talking about it, but it was also said don't follow Sam into the toilet.
Well, you could have thrown a bucket of glitter in their faces and run away. It wouldn't.
Well, it did. I mean, it did defuse the situation if you were a clown and you just did something silly.
Yeah.
When we went up to Kurdistan, they wanted us to pay some huge amount of money to get travel and residence permits. And we didn't have huge amounts of money. We were on a shoestring, really. So we said, I tell you what, if we can make you laugh with our trick, then you've got to let us into Kurdistan free. And there was just this trick with you appeared to put a cigarette out in somebody's jacket. This guy had a leather jacket he was incredibly proud of. And one of the lads did this trick where he appeared to be putting out the cigarette in the jacket, and they were so completely amazed they let us into Kurdistan.
That's extraordinary. Hand.
I do. I'll be using that one if ever I'm at a Kurdistan border check.
Exactly. It's worth bearing in mind.
It's worth knowing.
So, do you have any future plans for other sort of preposterous trips with your
no,
outfit?
I've got a 3-year-old now and one on the way in June. So,
Yeah.
I'm a bit domestic these days.
Probably sensible to avoid any kind of war-torn
Yeah,
territory.
try and stay out of war zone.
Well, it sounds an extraordinary adventure, and obviously, as you say, you've brought some pleasure to the people out there, which is obviously to be applauded. Although I can't help but feel that you are all stupid. But I mean that as a compliment, you know. I mean, you know, that's what I expect from clowns. But no, it's wonderful, and I thank you so much for getting in touch. I mean, I don't think when we threw open the phone lines that we would expect something quite so preposterous. But I'm surprised you've not been interviewed before. It's quite extraordinary.
If you Google "Don't Shoot the Clowns," because the other search engine's available. But yeah, Google "Don't Shoot the Clowns" and you'll find us on there.
You'll find some pictures of it. Okay, well, thank you so much indeed for getting in touch, Joe. It's been wonderful. A little round of applause, please, for Joe and her crazy gang. New single from the South East London 60s throwbacks, Lucky Soul. That's released in the beginning of May, and it's called Woe Billy. Steve Show 6 Music, and we are about to enter into the pigeonhole and look at some new releases from some big names. But prior to that, obviously a lot of people got in touch wanting to be